Good afternoon, West Ham fans. Russ from the West Ham Network. Hope you are all safe and well. Go and check out my rant I did this morning about football. Football is so boring nowadays, and we go into the weeds a little bit. Had a bit of a rant about the modern game, which stemmed from a conversation we had in our West Ham Network WhatsApp group, which meant that I wasn't alone in my thoughts. So I'd appreciate you if you can go and check it out. Don't forget to give it a like, give it a hype as well, or also subscribe if you're new around here. We're in the midst of the international break, but the stories don't stop coming. And we have the world famous Hammers headlines in association with the 𝗙𝗏 boys. Check them out in the description below for latest news, reviews, opinions, fans, forums, chatting to fans all over the world. So let's talk about a few stories that have happened over the last day or so. Let's talk about Michail Antonio. Now, let's follow the timeline of Mikel. So obviously he was training with West Ham, even though he was out of contract. He made a couple of games for the under-21s this season, and it was believed, the club offered him a play-as-you-pay deal for this season, which was rejected in favour of other offers which were on the table. However, it appears that isn't the case as such, and as said, West Ham maintained allowed him to still train and rehabilitate at West Ham's training ground at Rush Green. Now, according to X, all ties have been cut now of Mikel, and now he is training at Brentford, and it was, as mentioned yesterday, bidding towards making a potential top flight comeback. However, since then, it's been suggested that Brentford aren't looking to offer him a new deal, but we'll wait and see. So it seems that all these deals he had was agents' talk by the sounds of it. And it seems that, considering the age of him, I don't think he'll sign for another Premier League side. For me, I think he'll end up either going to the Saudi Pro League or the MLS. That's my choices for him, but we'll wait and see. But no longer associated with West Ham in terms of training at the club, at the training facility anymore, by what we're led to be believed. Talking about the academy and 21s, the sort of topic of conversation at the moment is Nuno's backroom staff. And there's a number of guys that we identified, we spoke about, I think it was last week, in terms of his men. But as reiterated by X yesterday, there could be promotion from a couple of the academy staff members into the first team setup. And in fact, Nuno's very keen to do that and have that sort of West Ham underbelly, so to speak, when it comes to the coaching staff, which I think is a fantastic move, not only from his perspective, but in terms of the fans' perspective as well. Particularly also if, God forbid, it doesn't work out with Nuno, for him to leave, the chance he wouldn't take the likes of Mark Robson or Steve Potts, who are both being earmarked as potentially being promoted into the first team's sort of backroom staff. They would stay, so that at least there would be some continuity, whether it meant them dropping back into the 21s or, working with a new manager. So actually I think there's a bit of continuation there, which I don't think is a bad idea at all. Let's be believe that the backroom staff will be finalised or should all be finalised, or hopefully by the time everyone returns back from international duty. Although the article speaks about Steve Potts and Mark Robson, I would assume Mark Robson will be more likely, having done the role already under David Moyes, and maybe being a little bit more experienced than Steve in terms of, Mark's obviously taking charge of actual, first team games when he was at Barnet, I think, as well. But we will see. As I said, I think it's a very shrewd move that one or two of them can be retained after the manager finalises his coaching reshuffle. But I'm all for it. And promoting, it's nice to promote some sort of relatively junior coaches into senior roles. And I think that will have a huge boost of everyone involved in the academy as well, because, I don't think it's a surprise that in the last couple of games we've seen the likes of Freddie Potts getting minutes. We've seen Callum Marshall get minutes. We've got Ollie Scars on the bench as well. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that's a result of the likes of Mark Robson, Steve Potts, Gerrard, as well, in the manager's ear in terms of options off the bench. Obviously Freddie played all pre-season and then didn't get a minute really under Graham Potter until he left. So I think that's a great shout, and particularly for the continuation of the youth team and the academy into the first team pathway. Let's talk January, shall we? Now, clearly one of the key things we're looking at is to bring in a forward. And over the last 24 hours, we've been linked to a couple in terms of new recruits. The first one is 𝗪𝗛𝗏 Castellanos from Lazio, a guy we've been linked to a few times, in honesty, when he was playing in the MLS before he went to Lazio. And I believe in the somewhere linked to him as well. Now, according to fresh reports, West Ham could be handed a fresh opportunity to sign him in January, with reports suggesting that Lazio are willing to sell the Argentine striker to fund new arrivals. The 27-year-old has bagged 2 goals and 3 assists in his opening 6 Serie A appearances this term. And according to Lazio, as they prepare to lift their transfer ban, they're looking and asking for around 30 million euros for 𝗪𝗛𝗏. His real name's like Valentine, but they call him 𝗪𝗏𝗏, a figure that will cover reinforcements requested by the new manager Maurizio Sarri at Lazio. As I said, he's previously been scouted by West Ham under 2 different regimes, the Steiden regime and the Potter regime. As Clarence Hughes suggests, it's unclear whether that was instigated by Carl McCauley or Max Hahn as well, following on the conversation last week. There was from Castellanos' camp, they weren't thrilled when Sarri returned to Lazio, having spent most of the season on the bench behind Ciro Immobile. But as I said, this campaign he started all but 1 game, which was when they lost to Roma in the derby, and he's grown in importance in terms of Lazio, but they're looking at him as being a sellable asset in January. So apparently offering him to the likes of West Ham and others for around 30 million euros. Not sure I really feel about that. I think he'll probably do better, to be honest, in all honesty. What about this gentleman? Where is it? There he is. This gentleman we've been linked to as well. As quoted in Clarence Hughes today, it's that La Liga striker, Álvaro Rodríguez Munoz. He's 21. He currently plays for Lecce. He spent last season on loan at Getafe, where he was on loan because he was at Real Madrid. He went to the Real Madrid Youth Academy and made a number of appearances for Real Madrid. He, as I said, now is at Lecce, a side which boasts former West Ham winger Grady Diangana. He plays for Lecce now, and Alvaro has represented both Spain and Uruguay at youth level, and has made 7 appearances in La Liga so far this season, registering 2 assists. Now, I very much doubt you know of him. And in terms of probably why I'd be linked with him, is because he's 6'5", so he's a big lad. Similarly, when we linked with, I think it was last week or the week before, Matteo Pellegrino, who again was 6'4", 6'5", something like that. So you can see the types of players it looks like we're trying to get. We're trying to get a Chris Wood type player, but maybe a little bit younger than Chris Wood. And so it looks like a big fella up front is what's needed. There's one at Dagenham Redbridge, Andy Carroll, get him in, big fellow up front. But yeah, I think you're going to see lots of these tall sort of strikers being linked with, and I think you probably discredit when we're linked with maybe smaller target men, or not even target men, maybe smaller strikers, smaller forwards. I don't know the price range in terms of Alvaro. I mean, the fact he's only just moved to Lecce, so it's relatively early doors. He's only 21 as well, so he's quite young. So whether we'd want to bring in someone more established, particularly where we are in the predicament of the club at the moment in terms of, you know, in the relegation zone. Do we rest our hopes on the 21-year-old? We'll see. But I just thought it was interesting. And I, you know, big lad up front. Love a big lad up front. What's Peter Crouch up to? Anyway, and that's it, my friends. Thank you very much for your time as per usual. We're back tomorrow for some more news and opinions. And yeah, don't forget to like, comment, share. If you have any hypes left, give us a hype. Hype up the video. Don't forget to check out theseareMyBrand.com for latest news, reviews, and opinions. I'll see you later, my peeps. Much love. Bye.